let's get started. So a little bit about Chip. Chip is a keynote speaker and customer loyalty expert. He's written 22 books. That's a lot. I'm not going to read you the list. And in the session today, we will discuss customer experience through innovative service. So Chip, why don't you tell a little bit about yourself?
Oh, sure.
Beyond this introduction.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I love working with organizations all over the world. And the thing I like most about is helping organizations create experiences that lead to what I call a profoundly remarkable experience, meaning an experience that is so profound, it touches you in such a powerful way, you can't wait to remark about it. That's profoundly remarkable. And even beyond that, the kind of remark that I like to foster, that I think really is the pinnacle, is when they tell a story about you. You know, when somebody says, "You ain't gonna believe what happened to me," and they tell you this great story, that creates the kind of advocacy that goes beyond just a recommendation. I know a lot of organizations have like Net Promoter, where they basically look at people who promote you. But we found in our research that a story-based recommendation versus "I'd recommend them" has a much higher impact on whether or not you can turn a prospect into a customer. But it's all about creating that kind of culture, kind of experience, and kind of people who drive that kind of experience in the customers they serve. So if you thought about a label for that, innovative service is kind of the overall label for it. So, I've been doing this many years, and I have written a lot of books, which means I've been on a lot of flights because I write when I fly. I write other times too, but my favorite is a 4-hour flight to Colorado or someplace like that where I've got time to write, and unfortunately people apparently like them, and so I'm always working on a new book, which I am right now.
What is that one about?
Well, the new book, the tentative title, right, and it'll come out next year. The tentative title is called Inside Your Customer's Imagination, and this one in particular is about kind of a new concept. Well, it's not really new, but you hadn't heard much about it. It's called customerization, and that is not just customization, is how do you involve the customer so that they help you co-create a service or a product or a solution. And so it's literally partnering with customers, not just getting their input, but getting their participation, and looking for ways to do that. So that's the new book. So I'm in the middle of all of that right now, but it'll come out next year.
Sounds fun. Looking forward to it.
Thanks.
All right, so let's move to our first question. So
Sure.
Please talk about the difference between value-added service and value-unique service.
Well, value added, most people, if you ask most organization leaders, they'll say, well, we want to provide value added, and that's a good thing because it's a generous approach. But traditionally, what that label means is taking what your customer expects and adding more. It's, you're such a great customer. I'll tell you what, we're going to upgrade you to first class. Or you frequent this hotel so many times. I tell you what, we're going to upgrade you to the fancy floor, the concierge level. That's value added. The challenge with it, there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, it's, as I say, it's generous. The challenge with it is that you can pretty quickly run out of room. And the other challenge with it is the fact that oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes customer expectations go up with it. So all of a sudden the customers go, well, last time you did this, now what are you going to do for me now? And so the expectations get higher and higher and higher and higher. Value unique, on the other hand, is doing something unusual, different, kind of ingenious or creative, and totally unexpected. It's creating a sense of surprise. So it's less about generosity and more about ingenuity. I'll give you an example. My wife bought a new car and traded her old car, got a new car. A week after she had a new car, she turned on the radio for the first time and discovered they had programmed in her radio stations from her trade-in. Now, what do you think she talks about? The car or the radio? Well, she talks about the radio, and Lord, I think what she paid for that car. But that's the kind of thing that's unique, that's different. It's not just value added, it's unique, it's unexpected. It creates a story that people just can't wait to share with somebody else. So value unique is the kind of experiences that are unexpected. They're simple most of the time. You need them simple, but they're appropriate. They fit the circumstance. So that's the concept of value. Think about it like if Cracker Jacks did service, it'd be value unique. You know you got a prize in that box, but you just don't know what that prize is going to be. And so I think it's the element of surprise that people go, wow, this is neat. So that's what I love to focus on.
Okay. A follow-up question on that. So you did mention how by adding value added service, you're going to run out of options. So how can you make sure that you don't run out of value unique things?
Well, I think the creativity of the people at the front line is, there's obviously a limit to generosity. I don't think there's any limit to ingenuity. You can always come up with, here's another idea, another idea. So I don't think we ever run out of ideas. There's always a different way to look at it. And one of the things I like to do with organizations and working with them is helping them craft lens, different perspectives that multiply the number of perspectives you may have. So for example, you might say, what would be a lens? One lens I call 4D. This is a fun one. 4D, I'll give you a story behind 4D. 4D is like looking at this experience through all the senses. I know there are 5 senses, but here's why I call it 4D. Several years ago, my wife and I broke the bank and bought a new TV. This is a high definition, big TV that was 3D. And we thought we cornered the market on all the 3D kids movies. And our goal was if we could have a 3D theater, a 3D movie TV, and we had tons of 3D kids movies, our grandkids would come see us more. And I mean, we had Frozen in 3D, we had Brave in 3D, we had Toy Story 12 in 3D, we had them all. And so it worked. They'd come see us, and they'd put on those glasses and they'd in the living room and they'd squeal. And we thought, we got a winner. And then they went to Disney World. And in addition to the images coming out in the theater, the seats shook and the wind blew and they got misted with rain and they walked out of that theater and they said, Chippy, when are we going to get a 4D TV? And in many ways, that's sort of like a customer, how do we create a little different perspective? And so how do you think about it if you look through the lens of all the senses? What might be new and unique and creative applications that that would please the customer, would get them to want to come back or get them certainly telling those great stories about you?
All right. So do you shake their seats now and throw water at them as they watch TV?
No. We just had to find another reason for them to come.
You watch all those movies now, right?
We do. Yeah, we got all the Barbie movies. I mean, I think we got the full collection. So.
All right. So talking about creativity and, ingenuity, like you said, there's no limit to that. But how can we inspire that in our employees? How can we encourage them to keep coming up with new ideas?
I think that's a great question. I think one is that it is the atmosphere that you create that says, I trust you. I don't think frontline people are going to do weird, crazy, wild, unusual, out of the ordinary, unexpected things unless they know that they are trusted. And, we might use the word empowerment, but that's an overused and often misunderstood word, empowerment. Some people think it means unlimited license. And the truth of the matter is it means responsible freedom. It means providing people the freedom to go the extra mile for that customer, but also with a sense of responsibility to the organization. So it's a balance of service and stewardship that I think is true meaning. But behind even empowerment is, I trust you. And I trust you also coupled with, if you make a mistake, because we're asking people to do unique things, encourage them to do unique things. They're gonna mess up sometimes. They're gonna make a mistake. They're gonna go too far. They're gonna do something that, oh, we wish we hadn't done that. And I think when the organizations that are successful at that are those that say, okay, what can we learn from this? How can we turn this into a learning opportunity, as opposed to an opportunity for rebuke or judgment or criticism or that kind of thing. So I think if you hire great people and you provide them the resources they need to be successful, and you provide them the competence they need to be successful, then you let them do the job, and knowing they're going to make mistakes, because we're all human. We're going to blow it once in a while. And again, how a leader in an organization responds to that is the difference. Not that we don't always expect excellence, but we don't expect perfection, because that absolutely is critical to an innovative environment. So I think that's how we do it, and we also learn from it in a way that's part of the shared aspect. A good example is how at Disney. Have you been to Disney?
Yes.
Okay. I bet when you came in to your room after you'd been out, and if you stayed at a Disney property, I bet you somebody took one of those towels or bath cloths from the bathroom and they fashioned some sort of figure, a swan or a dove or something out of it. Well, that's standard. That's sort of signature Disney. And you'll find that if you're at Euro Disney, or if you're at the Disneyland or Disney World, they all do it. But it all came when a housekeeper in one of their properties learned how to do this and did it, and got enormous feedback from the guests who stayed there. And all of a sudden it got picked up and they started doing it in every property. And so I think part of the experimentation and risk taking that results in, hey, this is cool, this worked, our guests really liked it, maybe we could replicate that in other places. So what does it do for that employee? It says, I'm valued, I'm important. What does it do for other people? Hey, if I come up with some of these ideas, look what happens. Other people will get to do it as well. And my name will be a hero because I came up with cool things. And so I think it's all in how we provide the kind of affirmation when we learn from it. And again, turn that learning opportunity into a shared learning, not just an individual learning. So that's I think those are key ways to help if you want that kind of ingenuity practiced. And a key point I made earlier, I want to underscore, if you look at, and I'm working on this now, if you looked at the most innovative companies in the world, and we can name off some that you'd think of, like Amazon and Google and so forth. They have no tolerance for incompetence, but they give you lots of freedom to make mistakes. And so I think when we say freedom to do silly, crazy, wacky, whimsical things, doesn't mean that we don't have high standards of performance. That they can go hand in hand. So. It's how we treat people at the end of the day, in terms of everybody has the capacity to be creative and innovative. Everybody does. You're born with that. You used to be. Most people, I hate to say, well, I'm not creative. I bet if I talk to your daycare worker, she says you were when you were 5. I bet your mama will have a different story about whether or not you're creative. Used to be creative. So we all have that capacity, and I think it's just finding a way to nurture it. It's finding a way to bring it out. It's finding ways to reinforce it. It's finding a way to help people be more confident around the concept of I'm creative, and let them come along a little step at a time, and they go, hey, you know what? I am creative. I can do some cool things. I think it's creating an environment where wacky's cool, wacky's okay, particularly in the whole service area. There are certain situations where you don't want wacky, brain surgery be one, I don't want wacky in the operating room, you know.
You don't want to get creative there.
No, I don't want to. I don't want to be a lot of creativity when my brain's involved. You know, let's follow rules. But and there are certain settings where wacky. I mean, you're at a funeral home, probably silliness wouldn't work. And that's why I said earlier, I think innovative service, you know, it needs to be unexpected, but it also needs to be appropriate. It needs to fit. So that keeping that in mind as well. So
Great. So again, talking about the value unique service, you give 3 components of that. So it's unexpected, simple, and brand fitting.
right.
Can you talk about each one and what
Sure.
some examples of that would be?
Oh, sure. Well, I just talked about fit. You know, it needs to fit the setting. It needs to fit the environment. It needs to fit the culture. It needs to fit your core values. You know, let's take an example. Delta Airlines is an airline I fly a lot on. Their personality, and they're good airline. They're a very good airline. I'm a fan of Delta. I fly with them a lot because I live near Atlanta. But their personality is very different than Southwest. And so if you did Southwest on Delta, it would look a little odd. It wouldn't be quite the right fit. It works because Southwest is covering a lot of other stuff and open about it. You know, it's a kind of a value proposition to the marketplace that should fail. Think about it. They're using old planes. They herd you on. There's no first class. There's no assigned seats, and they feed you peanuts. Now that ought to fail, you know, but they don't. They're successful. Why are they successful? What do people talk about? Well, because the flight attendant was really funny. They stood up there and gave the FAA briefing, and it was really silly and really funny. So in many ways, it's part of their strategy. And their whole, you know, stock symbol is LUV. And so they're all about that. That works for Southwest. It wouldn't work the same way if you were Delta. So I think it needs to fit your set of value, as well as the setting, as I mentioned. What'll work in Home Depot wouldn't work in the funeral home. And so it needs to be sensitive to that. I think unexpected means to me that it sort of catches you, some aspect about it catches you by surprise. I'll give you an example. There is a men's store called Miller Brothers in Atlanta, and I you know, they're high-end men's store. They do a lot of unique things. But let's just imagine if you were going there to buy clothes as a male, dress clothes, and they have kind of a real pretty entrance area with a entrance hall table kind of thing. You'd probably expect it to be sort of classy, upscale, which it is. What you wouldn't expect is there is a gumball machine with big colored gumballs inside and a big bowl of brand new shiny pennies right beside it. So it's kind of like, whoa, that's cool. Look at there, a big gumball machine in the middle of a classy men's store. But guess where Junior goes when Daddy's trying on trousers? You know, so it's kind of an unexpected twist. You know, it's adds something that, you know, you've seen stores where it says children must be accompanied with an adult. Well, I have a store that I go to nearby that says, instead of using the usual traditional sign like that, says unaccompanied children will be given an espresso and a free puppy. Well, you know, not only you would remember that, and you'd probably comment on that. So it's looking for the unusual kind of unexpected things. And I think the point of simple is the fact that, you know, customers like the things that are unexpectedly but simple, because, you know, if we get into champagne and red carpets and helicopters, you know, customers start wondering, well, how much am I paying for this? Well, no wonder this costs what this costs. Look what they got. So I think it needs to stay simple. And we all know that in the world of humor and the world of entertainment, the simple works more effectively. I'll give you an example. I have a dealership where my wife and I both take our cars to have them serviced. Well, it happens to be an hour and a half away. Now you can guess it must be a pretty good dealership if you drive 90 minutes to take it there. And so, but we go there because they do kind of unique things. For example, my wife and I have the same brand car. And so when they do the customer profile, they ask us, what kind of coffee do you like? What's your favorite coffee? Do you like flavored coffee? Yeah, we like flavor. What flavor do you like? Well, we like hazelnut. So you can bet when I take the car over, and I'm gonna wait for it because it's an hour and a half. I'm not gonna drive over and drive back, just to have it serviced. Usually it takes an hour and a half or 2 hours. So I'm gonna take my lap computer and sit in the reception area while they fix my car and do the maintenance on it. And you can bet when I'm there are at least 2 K-cups for the Keurig machine that are hazelnut, because Chip's coming or his wife's coming. Let's make sure we have one. Have there for his enjoyment. That's kind of simple. That doesn't cost a lot. It wasn't hard to do, but it sure makes a difference. Also, it's not unusual for a dealership to have a bottle of cold water in the cup holder when you get your car after it's been serviced. I bet they do that at your dealership. But they do something different. When I take my car in to have, and now remember, my wife is also got a same brand car. She takes hers in as well. And so they sometimes, not every time, but a lot of times there'll be a long stem rose laying on the passenger side seat for me to take home to her. Well, I'm a romantic at heart. That kind of touches me. I go, whoa, this is kind of cool. I mean, as you and I were talking earlier, somebody that gets up and dances during the credits must be pretty romantic kind of dude, which I am. But that's whether you are or not, the whole idea is, wow, look what they thought about. They knew his wife brings her car here too, and let's help him remember her as well. But that's simple. That didn't take a lot of effort. That didn't take a lot of just, there's a florist nearby. They just, they'll stop by and pick up a dozen roses to put in their cooler. So when a customer comes in with that kind of circumstances. So, but it's planning that and setting it up so the customer goes, you ain't gonna believe what happened to me. And then all of a sudden there's that story they can't wait to share with other people. And again, as I said earlier, to me, the storytelling is the pinnacle of customer advocacy. When you get customers telling stories about you, that's the highest. So those are the 3 elements: unexpected, simple, and does it fit? Does it appropriate?
Well, going back to that, to brand fitting, what's important to keep in mind when coming up to that? It's important to be creative, yes, but how do you not go overboard?
I think the customer will tell you that.
Okay.
And your finance person will probably tell you that too. But I think my view is err on the side of going too far. And here's why. Organizations are rational, not whimsical. I mean, everything about an organization in business world today is rational, logical, and analytical. So, nobody ever says, this plan we've got is just too rational. It's just too logical. We can't do this. I mean, and so what I'm saying is the environment already reeks of control. It already reeks of analytical and logical and rational. That's already hardwired into the DNA of every organization. And so you got a lot pulling you back to say, we got to stay within the boundaries and stay. And so I encourage people to say, let's go. It's okay. I'd rather go overboard than underboard because you got plenty pulling you back. And so it's harder to get people to say, what if we did something weird? I'll give you a good example. One I love. I'm a huge Jack Daniels fan and I love to barbecue. And so my wife bought me the Jack Daniels barbecue cookbook. It's a real pretty cookbook, got lots and lots of recipes. Well, I'm thumbing through and I'm looking at some of these real cool recipes, and I get halfway through and they've got a recipe for roast possum. I go, roast possum, look at this. They got a recipe and you turn the page and there's one for barbecued rabbit And then at the bottom of the page, chicken fried beaver. Now, nobody eats chicken fried beaver, but they put it in there. Somebody said, hey, let's put something cool in the cookbook. And like me, I go, hey, come look what they put in this cookbook. And you got a story. I bet you most of my friends, when they've come over to my house, say, where's that cookbook I heard about? Well, there's a story that creates now, and because somebody said, well, let's do something out of the ordinary. Let's put something unusual. Let's put something out of the ordinary in the middle of this cookbook. Probably something totally unrealistic. Who's going to eat beaver? You know, maybe possum. I ate possum as a kid, but not very often. It's terribly greasy. Rabbit would be, oh, yeah. Well, we all ate rabbit. You get poor enough, you eat rabbit. But beaver, I mean, you know, it's like eating armadillo. You know, so what I'm saying is, but I'm sure they put it in there just for the whimsical effect that, and so sometimes that's a cool thing to do. You know, it's looking for some way to create a story. You and I were talking earlier about working with this auto auction, big wholesale auto auction company. They're big, giant locations where people, wholesalers come to buy and sell automobiles, great marketplace. And so, but what the company I work with, Manheim, it was called Manheim, one of the things they do at their dealership is you can always count on in the lobby where you have to get your badge to be able to get into the auction, because it's only for wholesalers, not retailers. You can't go there and buy a car. A dealer can't go there and buy a car. You've got to go buy it. So what I'm saying is it's just wholesale, but they always put in the lobby something out of the ordinary that starts people talking. For example, here is a CIA van with all the equipment inside that people can actually go in and look at. Here is a brand new Rolls Royce. Whoa, look at that. Here is a real cool looking sports car. You know, here's an antique Morgan or an MG. There's always something in that car, in that lobby that gets people talking. That's the kind of creativity that creates a memory, you know. So that to me, that's part of it, is creating that kind of memory that people talk about. Go on the edge, be silly, be whimsical. You know, there'll be plenty there to call you back.
All right. So we're moving on to our question and answer. Do we have any questions? We don't have any questions.
We can keep going.
But I have one.
Good. We can just keep going.
So as a customer experience expert, and you have all these great stories about things that work, is it hard to be a customer out there and then you see things that are not done right? You see the customer experiences that you go through that might not be so fun. So
right.
Is it hard to be a customer out there?
It is, because you see what they could do. But I decided years ago, rather than just going, oh, look, what they're doing, that's terrible, that's wrong, I could tell them a thing or two. I decided that I could always be a mentor, you know, and I could say, would you be interested in an idea about how this might work better? Well, yeah. And so I always take it upon myself when I'm in a situation where I get bad service to figure out a way to turn it around. I get great service pretty much wherever I go, I'll be honest with you, not because they know who I am or what I do, but because I set it up that way. You know, I set it up going into it. I assume I'm going to get great service, and I assume the person that I'm dealing with wants to give me great service. There's usually just something in the way. And so I go in, I go, man, this is going to be a great day, isn't it? Hot dang, I'm so glad. You know how lucky we are. We got you. And so, you know, I go in a restaurant and I set it up. I say, hey, you know what I'm going to do? I tell you what, I want your very best. I want your best wait staff, you know, and we're big tippers. I'll tell you what, we'll take good care of, but I want your very, very best. And so they'll go, well, that'd be whoever it is, doesn't matter. And so the person comes over to take our order, and I go, you know what, we're lucky we got you because we asked for you. What? Well, we said we wanted the very best they had, and they gave us you. So we are really lucky. Well, what kind of service am I going to get if I've already told this person, we heard you're the best they got? And so that's what I'm saying. You can always wire it in a way. I think you can influence in a way that you can get, you know, because I'm an optimistic guy, and I go in probably more aggressive than I need to be. But nevertheless, what I notice is the person who's in the service role usually end up having fun along with you. particularly if you work with them and you honor and respect the rules they have to live with. You don't make them the culprit. Again, pretty much most people they're serving are good people wanting to do the right thing. They're not just evil individuals come and say, whose day can I ruin today? They don't, that's, you don't have that. They wouldn't last very long. But, and so to me, the job is to say, let's turn this into a happy moment, because I'm going to benefit. I'm going to get a happy experience, and they're going to benefit because they're going to end up feeling better and maybe learning some techniques along the way that would benefit the next customer they serve. So I think it's, to me, if you bring the right attitude, you can get great service.
Great. So it's a great point. So as much as management and employees are responsible for great service, so are the customers, right? Because we can
yeah. I expect great service. I want great service, and I'm gonna do my best to make sure I get it. And again, if you create this as a partnership, hey, you and I are gonna create this great experience together, and you go in with that attitude that you're there to help them as you hope they help you, and the outcome usually is pretty good. Not very often do I get somebody who is just absolutely insist, no, we're going to have a bad day here. It doesn't happen very often, and when that does happen and you've done all you can, you just say, guess I won't be coming back. That's not where I want to be.
Right. Great.
So
that's a great point, and I think it's a good place for us to wrap up. And for everyone to remember too, you can be a good employee and a good customer, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. For anybody watching, we were here with Chip Bell, and have a great day.
Thank you so much.
All right, great.